do this. I just don't do it very
You
often.
you don't come and present and share and all of your wisdom with the world on
I
camera that often.
I used to teach college students, but they don't care.
Oh, well then there you go. So now you've got an engaged audience,
Yeah.
somebody who can geek out with you because this is I've been looking forward to this because
Yeah.
you are a fellow student of both psychology and marketing like myself.
Yeah.
You continue to sort of study and be engaged, I think, with both subjects. So I have a feeling you and I could talk for a long time. But
Yeah.
let me welcome you to Balls in Your Face Marketing. We'll do this as an official Balls in Your Marketing short. And let me quickly introduce you. So this is Helen Even Chen, everybody, and she's the founder of Insight Out Digital Consulting Agency, which I think you opened doors around 2016.
Officially, I've been under different names for a very long time, but
Right. And you are a Facebook and Google e-commerce funnel specialist, digital marketing psychology guru, and you've worked. So you guys have worked for brands like Mercedes-Benz.
yeah, we work with all kinds of businesses. Unfortunately, many of them have us under NDA, so we can't
Yes.
really disclose,
Okay.
unfortunately.
Okay. Well, a little bird told me about that one,
Yeah.
and a little bird told me about something else, and this is really why let me try to set up what we're going to be talking about today.
Okay.
So a little bird told me that you have an MBA
I do.
in the field of marketing and advertising, and in particular that you were valedictorian of your class. And on top of that, when you gave your valedictorian speech, you gave a speech about personal branding.
Yeah.
So it just so happens that I just recently I saw a video by a gentleman named Roger Wilkerson on LinkedIn. He was basically making a point, just a little quick video to say, hey, people are not brands, things are brands. So I had him on the show the other day, interviewed him. I'm kind of agnostic on this, even though I've been in marketing all my life. I found it an intriguing question. And before we just begin, let me just quickly, with that video, I kind of looked up some stats on what we were kind of trending, what people are searching on the subject. And it turns out that there is a lot of sort of questions about this. So is personal branding fake? We are ranked number 3 on YouTube. Okay, for that video that we just did this week. And I only saw his video about a week ago too. So can people be brands? And we're ranked number 1 on YouTube with that video.
Yeah.
And even actually, what's a brand? We've been going up to number 14 on YouTube. So I find all of that kind of very interesting. Obviously, some people think that a person can be, some people think that they can. Let us know your thoughts.
Well, so my speech was, well, let me put it in perspective a little bit, because my speech was like 10 years ago, when personal branding was a very young discipline, and also digital marketing was not as established as it is today. So it's kind of it's a different perspective of a very young field.
Yeah, sure.
And so branding in general, there are several approaches, as we discussed before, right?
Yeah.
Because you can say that the classic approach is branding is something that has a symbol, right? You wear this shirt by Nike, right? And you have the swoosh, and that's a brand. But that's just the symbol. The brand is all the other things. This is just the trigger. This is just something that's supposed to trigger your feelings about Nike. It's not the brand. It could be something else. It could be a flower. It could be, I don't know, it's what you feel about the subject is what makes it the brand. It's just do it feeling that you feel. Even if you jog mostly to the closest grocery store, you feel that you're doing it because it's Nike. That's just how you feel about Nike.
Right. So for you, the brand is the totality of the entity, right? The business, its people, its motto, or slogans, its Its logo is just its logo. Each thing is its own thing, and altogether it forms a brand.
Yeah, I come from what is called, I don't come from, the field of design.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What I do in branding is actually understand the feelings, the psychology of what your target audience wants,
Mm-hmm.
and how we can make them feel that way about your brand.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the sum of everything.
It's the sum of everything. And I certainly agree with you that I think that's, branding is a word that's evolved. And that's, so Roger's perspective was, it stems from branding animals. One of his other points, I guess, was that, we actually don't, he felt that it had this, we don't have we don't like the word, like when you say, oh, that's just branding, there's sort of a negative connotation to it too.
Yeah.
So I think that's where, he says, as from a very sort of dictionary perspective, he's saying, it's very clear that it applies to a thing or a product, not a person.
Yeah, but what about all the products and the brands that are essentially unbranded?
Okay, so yeah, let's talk about some of that. Let's talk about some examples.
Yeah, you can talk about, Everlane. It's a t-shirt company. They make designer t-shirts, designer sweaters, designer all kinds of everything, but they're not branded at all. You can never know that it's by Everlane unless you do.
Interesting.
And you know what? Even American Apparel, they're long gone, but they were the same thing, right? They were never branded. You could never know that they made it.
Yeah, okay, so they weren't trying to create this is, here's our logo, here's our icon, like flashing that in your face.
Yeah, because brands is something that is like an extension of ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So how does a company like that, who's not, let's say, putting out that image, still like generate business? So how do they, if they're not saying who they are in that kind of like creating a character about themselves?
Because it's what they say about them, what they represent, what they do. Because in Everlane's case, it's like Tom's shoes, right? Tom's shoes, they stand for something. They give another pair of shoes for a child in need, right? Mm-hmm. Every time you buy a pair. Because companies and brands, they stand for something, and you want to feel good about yourself by wearing that.
Right.
By buying that, And in that sense, I know that people can be brands because what they represent for us.
Right. So, well, I mean, I tend to agree. Like, what do you say about a person like a Michael Jordan or a Kim Kardashian, who's nothing more than just her name? That she didn't do well. I mean, okay, I guess you could say that she performed in a video,
but this is a wider sense, because Kim Kardashian, she's like a product almost. You don't even know what kind of a person she is, right? I don't know her. Yeah, I only know, like her public appearance. I'm talking about regular people like you, mm-hmm. and me, and everyone who we know in the academy who can brand themselves to be expert in a specific field. You're going to be the go-to for many of your clients and many other people as the go-to in a certain field. That makes you a brand.
Okay, so I suppose it does, but I guess that's an interesting question. Is I can do that as a business, and I can say here's a company that I created, and that's my brand. Or as you said, though, I can go as myself. So what's in today's market? Maybe is one strategy better than the other?
I don't think so. It matters if you are meaning to sell your company in the future or not. Then It should be separated from what you are actually.
Right.
But people, but let's.
Well, I mean, one example that I brought up was, let's say, Donald Trump. Then.
Yeah.
Right. Like, so there's somebody who has really, and when they think about him as on buildings and they see his name and so on, but he didn't build them. He didn't do anything anymore. Yeah. He found a way to build up these sort of luxury towers, create an association with his name and that type of building, and then rents out his name.
Right, but that's more of like a label. I'm talking about something more in more wide sense of the word, right?
Right.
Because that's more of like a brand. That is a label if you're paying for something just for the name of it. But there's also danger in there, because once people were disagreeing with Donald Trump, his name was removed from any of those buildings, right?
That's right.
So there were really no substance there.
Right. So
for many people.
Okay. So yes, and we're saying that the value of the label went down, or did the value of the brand go down?
That's a good question.
Right. I mean, I think that's the thing. I think is the labels attached to the brand. So, right, like that's I think ultimately, right, because if the label by itself, then people wouldn't have that and say, well, okay, I don't like, businesses obviously wouldn't be afraid. Well, who knows? And who knows, by the way, if they didn't take down and change names, would that change business? I have no idea what the data is on how his hotels are doing that.
That's a good question, but a personal branding, I think it's more than using your name as the label, right?
Yes, yes.
Because here we come back to the simple form of branding. Because if we're going to put your name on something, it's going to sell. But people, luckily, they're more advanced now than they've been over the years, right? Because we have all this information and all these products and all these people, and we see many gurus that basically saying the same thing all over and over again, right? So are there brands? I don't know. It's brand is something different for different people, because maybe for you and I, Kat, maybe represent something that we aspire to, so she's a brand for us, right?
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's very interesting, because here's my, I guess, my personal take. And again, I haven't. It's not really a subject that I've necessarily dissected in too much detail. I've never worried about it. When I've talked with my fellow marketing peers, and we say, okay, we're going to do some branding for them, right? Okay, yeah, that's not an immediate, like, okay, do we know what that means right away? Actually, no, we don't. Okay, well, what do we mean? What kind of branding? Do they need a new logo? Do they need some more definition and some content writing? That could be a whole bunch of things, but we tend to know, we just use it.
I will even be more extreme and argue, does the logo really matter?
No, I don't think. Well, good question, and the answer is no, absolutely no, because in the sense that you could, if you were to sort of remove a logo from a brand, if we were to say, okay, well, hey, Nike, you're no longer allowed to use your little check mark.
It's still Nike.
It's still Nike, and they could say, hey, like, and what's to stop them? And companies do this all the time. Say, here's our new logo.
Because they tell a story. So when I hear marketing, marketers, good marketers talking about branding, when they are talking about branding, they usually mean they want to tell a story. They want to tell a different story.
Yeah. No, and I agree with you. So here too is where I think things are going anyways when we talk about personal brand, is that, I think a lot of the people are out there sort of working independently, but at the same time collaboratively with either other freelancers or as contractors in multiple companies, that the progression towards sort of almost self-employed and actually being an individual brand. And exactly like you said, I don't think it's necessarily your name. I don't think it's your face. I think that those things, like those images, once you've established an image, it has a value, it has an association with you. So for example, if Nike were to get rid of their little check mark, well, that would be a loss to them, because that little check mark is worth something. But
yeah, it was something in the sense of that it triggers the story.
Well, this is the thing, right? It's like, but exactly, like if you were to somehow, for some reason, to be able to take it away from them, well, one, like in a way, like anybody who had now an old hat with the check mark on it, that would probably all of a sudden become worth more money. And they would have to, let's say, create a brand new logo, and very quickly, because we know who Nike is, that would become the new cool logo.
But the question is different. Let's say Nike would allow you to use the swoosh. Do you think like all values and all the stories and all the history that comes with Nike will be transferred to you because you have the swoosh?
No, if I no, it's theirs.
Yeah,
it's associated with them, and so yeah, you're right. That's it has value. It doesn't mean, like, that's the thing. I think what you're saying is a very valid. I think you're right. It has to, because of the fact that we use it in so many ways. Obviously, it is this kind of all-encompassing thing, and it's hard. You can't dissect a brand and say it's this here, that it's this logo.
It's the story, but I think that for all the well-known brands and people and anybody who you can tell the story pretty accurately,
Oh, absolutely. And that's why a brand can collapse overnight. One bad story.
Exactly, and that is a brand, and that's the reason we can do personal branding the same way that we actually create a product, a brand for a product, because it's the stories, it's your personality, it's who you are, it's what you do, it's how you communicate, is how, one great definition of branding, I don't remember by whom, unfortunately, is brand is something that people say about you when you're not in the room.
Right. Interesting. That's funny. Well, you're right. I think that's bang on. I mean, that's sort of where I was going. I think that, we all comport ourselves in a certain way, and that's our brand. We all have our different styles. Certainly, having been a bit of a hobby musician and worked with different musicians, I know that it's sort of like, as much as I might want to sound like somebody else, we all musicians kind of fall into their own sound and style, right? It's like once you've heard a song by a certain band, it's like you just recognize their style right away. It's their brand. And how do you can't like put a thumb on what that is.
Exactly. And sometimes you see the work of other marketers and you can recognize who did that. Like who did the branding, who is telling the stories, who is marketing style that is,
or whose brand they're trying to imitate.
You can see, it's like your writing style, it's your copy style, is everything. So,
and I think that's more and more important and more valuable. That's where I think, I could be wrong about this, but I do think that more and more people are going to be operating in the way that we do. Like, I think marketers are kind of the canary in the coal mine often. And the way that you and I are sort of constantly kind of I know you're always sort of updating your skills and knowledge online, doing video conferences like this.
Yeah.
And then working all day kind of a thing, meeting people in a new digital sort of age kind of way. And I think more people are going to be in this position where they're like, this is what I'm good at. This is how I do things. This is how I work. That's my brand. Yeah.
Because I feel like more people will join that, but I feel like people that come from marketing as a background, especially people who are coming from marketing where there was no digital.
Sure. Yeah, no, I remember.
I feel that we're very lucky because we do have the skills to do that and to understand, because at the end, clicks, conversions, products, these are all people.
That's right.
These are people. These are same old people who are buying your things or listening to you or writing the emails or connecting you with you on Twitter. It doesn't matter. These are people.
That's right. Yeah, no, the people, exactly. We as a species have not changed in a very long time. We've kind of stopped evolving, really, in a way. Yeah. Well, because there's not that environmental pressure for us too, right? And so we really only what evolves. What I think evolves is our institutions, right?
Yeah.
And our technologies and that. So, but the fundamentals of who we are, and I think that's why, like, why Mark Zuckerberg is the genius that he is.
Yeah.
He's a keen observer of how we actually behave and what motivates us and what we want to do, which is connect.
And that's, I think, yeah, and that's the most important thing, because brands, whether they're people or products or whatever, they all allow us to connect. They all allow us to have a shared goal, right? A shared value. Because when you see people who are brands, people with many followers on Twitter, for example, they're gurus in their professional field. People respect them because what they do, not because how they look, and their brands to those people. And and what's actually exciting to me in our digital world is that everyone can find their niche, their brand.
Absolutely.
There are so many definitions of branding and of everything that it's great that he sees things the way he sees things, and you see them differently. That's what creates the interest. Otherwise it would be very boring. I promise you that.
Yeah. So I think here's my sense, and I could be completely wrong, but I think where he's coming from is from a perspective of more just an observation of how a lot of young marketers are sort of coming into the market space. And I think that there's maybe some confusion, exactly as you said. Like, is it me? Is it my name that I should be going out and saying, hey, I'm Joe Schmo and I am the best Facebook marketer out there, and it's me, 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 me? Or as you said, well, hey, if you're thinking long term and you're thinking about building an agency and a business, well, maybe you should be saying, putting all of that branding effort into that. So I think there's a pushback of people wanting to make it about themselves. And I think it's maybe a pushback of maybe a narcissistic age, right?
I think it also a pushback at because digital marketing as a whole is much younger discipline than marketing, right? Than consumer behavior or anything psychology related. And many of these younger marketers, they don't have the necessarily background. So it turns to be everything about them, right? If everybody's doing something, the same thing over and over again, that's not branding. That's mass product.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Brand's supposed to be unique. Imagine, let's go back to Nike, because like everybody who knows Nike. Imagine everybody said, let's do it.
Right.
Just do it.
Yeah.
And, and everybody had the swoosh. There's a reason why all this branding marks, they're registered signs, right? You cannot just use the swoosh. Yeah. Sorry, my kid is here. She's trying to trying to get into the camera. She's like, who's that guy? Even successful Facebook marketers, can you name even one who is actually a brand? Okay, Gary Veynerchuck. Yeah. That's a brand. But
he's become a brand, absolutely.
But he's been building his brand for a very long time.
Yes, he has. Oh, yeah. No. I mean, look, he's the first entrepreneur to have a shoe made out of him, right? And what's he doing though? Is he's tapping into, because there's a shoe culture, there's a sneaker culture.
Yeah.
And he is absolutely a master of saying, where are all these little cultures or groups or tribes, and he's putting his face into every single one, and he's very honest and open about what he's doing. He'll say, I'm peacocking around.
Yeah
But
that's okay. That's a brand.
That's his brand.
That's his brand. But have you seen him doing all kinds of meaningless stuff, like the people with expensive cars on Facebook? No, he doesn't need to.
No, he's not showing.
Like,
No.
he's in your face. That's the brand, you know. But how many can you really say what they actually mean, what the essence of what they do?
Yeah, and that's where exactly. I think this is why he's, I think, part of his brilliance. He has a message.
Yeah, it's genuine. It's real.
Yeah, he has a story. This is how I did it.
He has a story. You see, we always go back to real stories. People want stories. They want stories they can identify with. They want stories that make them feel better about themselves, you know. Like Gary Vee makes people feel that they can do it.
That's right.
Like the human Nike. Well, so the point of branding, you know, is you doing something unique, because and really keeping your own scent, because let's say everybody would call their podcast "BALLZ in Your Face Marketing."
Yeah.
How will we be able to distinguish any of you? Like, I don't know, who am I talking about, right? Who am I talking to right now?
That's right.
But you need to be able to, and that's the problem, because people think that showing expensive cars and this nice beaches and all this nice hotels, and they're gonna make people aspire to that, and it will make them a premium brand because they took a picture, you know, next to a car. But that's not branding. That's I think that what he was talking about, what he was coming against, is this culture, because this is not branding.
No, I think, exactly.
You know?
Exactly.
Like, it's not even genuine. It says nothing, because I do not connect to that. For example, I don't care about expensive cars.
No, I know.
You know,
I know, and well, I mean, exactly. No, and I agree with. This is the funny thing, is like, again, like whatever it was, I feel like, you know, I find it very interesting that he's coming at it from sort of, in a way, you could say almost a different side from you, and he's against personal branding. You say yes, there can be, but ultimately, in a way, I think you almost, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe that's me projecting what I think is a pushback against something.
That I agree, you know, because that's not, but I'm saying that that's not branding at all. Not like product, not like this. And
I think he would agree.
Says nothing. It says nothing to nobody, you know.
Well, and he said, I think it's something very similar, right? That then it just becomes you're doing a popularity contest. It's who's got the most, who's the fastest, who's the richest.
And on Facebook, it's just who has the most budget.
Right. Yeah.
I've got big balls. I've got big